We're going to wait till we hear that
There it is.
you are being recorded.
Did it record?
Recording in progress.
There we go. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the April 9th meeting of the Westford Select Board. We are going to start, as we do, with the Pledge of Allegiance, led tonight by Scott.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we will start off tonight with our open forum. And first, we'd like to recognize Captain David O'Keefe, who's retiring from the fire department after 40 years. Chief, I believe you've got a few words to say.
I could say a lot about David, but we'll be brief. And, again, he's someone that's over 40 years leaving with a lot of knowledge that he brought to our department that he's learned over the years. He'll sorely be missed. One of the big things I thought of social media post that we did miss was he did when we started Firefighter 1-2 training, where it became national certification, he led the way with that, and he ran almost like a recruit program in town, not only for our town and other towns like Tingsboro, Air, Groton. There's a lot of firefighters that are still around that were in his classes, where he ran these Firefighter 1-2 classes. He's really going to be missed. He's one of our last, as we say in the fire service, backsteppers. They used to ride the tailboard of the trucks. We only got a few of them left. There was a huge safety issue, obviously, back then. The trucks weren't made that way. But he's been around for a while, and I started with him down in Granville on Broadway Street at Company 2, and it's tough to see him go, but I'm happy for him at the same time. So I just want to congratulate him.
Yeah, us too, and what a pleasure and an honor it is to have 40 years of service from someone like that, and from a long family, right, of
Oh, yes.
firefighters here in Westford.
Yep, exactly.
Great, I know there were a few other folks that wanted to make some comments too.
So yeah, I've had the pleasure of meeting Dave back just starting out, probably like 1990 or so, when we were both younger, and he's still in better shape than I am. But even then, he was a nice guy and had a lot of confidence. If there was something bad happening, you wanted him to be around to take care of it. As the chief mentioned, he's a town boy. He was raised in Graniteville and Forge. His grandfather was a chief. His uncle was a chief. His other uncle was a captain. So he's a third generation firefighter. When he retired, or told me he was retiring, I compared him to an old fire horse. So in the days of horse-drawn steamers, these are 3 or 4 ton rigs, and so you had horses that were pretty young and strong to pull them. And as they got older, they were off the job onto things like milk wagons and so forth. But when a fire came up, when that steamer went by, they would take off, hauling the milk wagon along with it to the fire. So it's, Dave, you can retire, but you're never going to leave. And in fact, he wrote to me or texted me, he said, it's weird. I'll miss going on the calls where I've known the people that live there. They see these guys show up to their emergency and calm down after they see me. I feel bad for those people. I'm not going to be showing up for them anymore. Kind of feel like I'm letting them down. I'm sure they'll still call me, though. In fact, since then, 3 people have called him saying, I got this problem. Should I call the fire department or not? Yes, call the fire department. And so congratulations to Dave. And he couldn't be here. He's actually, the good news is with retirement, he can go see his kids' sporting games. So tonight he is giving a critique of his daughter's lacrosse game, which means she may be wishing he hadn't retired. But if I can get to it, it's okay. So what David said was, want to thank the town. I want to thank the board, the town manager, past and present firefighters for being recognized tonight. It's been an honor to serve Westford and to be part of the fire department for over 40 years. I'm humbled by everyone that has reached out to me, and I will miss it. So we'll miss you too, Dave, and congratulations and well-earned retirement.
Thank you to Dave. Maybe a round of applause for Dave. Thank you. Okay, another recognition tonight. We want to recognize the town for winning the ACEC Bronze Excellence Award for the Beaver Brook Bridge project. Maybe, Kristen, you could tell us just a little bit what that is.
Sure. So, again, wanted to congratulate our town on being nominated by our consultant, TEC Inc., who's our traffic consultant, for the American Council of Engineering Companies Bronze Award for the Beaverbrook Road Bridge replacement. I know this started well before I came to the town, but it was an emergency closure and then really a quick design and implementation, and many thanks to our consultant TEC, but mostly our staff who helped with the design process and our residents who were so patient with that closure for such a long time, as it's one of the major thoroughfares. So myself, DPW Director Kyle Fox, Town Engineer Paul Starrett, and Assistant Town Engineer Jeremy Downs were able to go to this award ceremony in Boston a few Thursdays ago to accept this award. And it was one of many awards and throughout the entire state. So it was really nice to be able to celebrate Westford and celebrate our staff and our consultants.
Oh, great. Well, congratulations to the whole team that supported that. I should thank WestfordCAT. We were starting a couple minutes late today because they were scrambling to make sure that everything was working properly so people could join us remotely. So thank you for that. And before I open up to the board and to the mic for any other open forum items, a little bit later in the meeting, item 11, I think, we're going to be talking about the upcoming annual town meeting, but just a reminder that is coming up on April 27th at 9 a.m. at the Westford Academy Field. Come one, come all, very important business of the town to be discussed there and voted on. And it's this rare and wonderful example of pure democracy, and we look forward to the date. Anything else from the board before we move into the rest of the agenda? Anything from the public tonight? Anything online?
I don't see anything online.
Okay. We'll move into the consent agenda. The request is to approve the following. The first is a street road closure. The event is the Cub Mobile Race. The applicant is Scott Kinney, PAC 95. Location is Fisher Way. The event will take place between Abbott School parking lot and the cones at the bend on Fisher Way. The date is April 28th, 2024. The time is 12:30 to 3:30 p.m. There's a banner request for one for annual town meeting. The applicant is town manager's office. The dates are April 19th through the 29th of 2024, and the location is First Parish Church. And Kristen, I think there's an amendment to the banner request B. Maybe you can help us with that.
Sure, that's correct. So banner request B is for the annual Scout Troop Bike and Sporting Goods Sale from the Westford Scout Troop 437 by Andrea Weed. First of all, I want to thank them for moving their sale to accommodate the town meeting. They had originally requested April 26th to May 6th at the J.V. Fletcher Library. They're looking to amend that request for their banner to go up when our annual town meeting banner goes down on April 29th, and have that location be at the First Parish Church. They would be taking down their banner on May 6th.
Thank you, Kristen. For the town common and bandstand, the event is the annual Scout Troop Bike and Sporting Goods Sale. We're just discussing Westford Scout Troop 437. Applicant is Andrew Weed. The date is May 4th. Thank you for accommodating town meeting to the Scouts. With the backup date of May 5th, 2024, the time is 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. We have a flag hoisting request for the Juneteenth flag display and ceremony. The applicant is Wendy Gloyd from the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. The date is June 19th, 2024, and the time is 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. And finally, a road race. The event is the Tour de Cure. The applicant is Tim Munetzi, event manager. The date is August 18th, 2024. The time is 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Location is various roads. And I will entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We're all here tonight. Excellent. Our 710 item is a request to approve the May Mental Health Awareness Month proclamation. I don't know if Nicole is here tonight, or?
So Nicole, unfortunately, is at a children's sporting event as
Okay.
well, so I told her that I would cover this. You may recall last year, the Community Behavioral and Mental Health Committee was just getting started around this time, and Nicole and Ray Dick put it upon themselves to request the board approve a May Mental Health Awareness Month proclamation, and that was approved, so thank you for that. Based upon the work of the Community Behavioral and Mental Health Committee, they have requested several amendments to that proclamation, so those are in your packet. It is not a red line, it's just the straight proclamation, so they'd be looking for approval of that language.
Any questions about the language?
I'll move to approve.
Okay. Second. All those in favor? Thank you all. Introductory presentation. So now we're going to welcome Jennifer and Kelly. If you'd please come up and join us here. Welcome.
Absolutely.
We're going to welcome these good folks from the Northern Middlesex Council of Governments, or NCOG, as we call them, NCOG, on current work in our community and region. Please welcome.
Thank you so much. So, good evening. I am Jennifer Reid. I'm the Executive Director at NIMCOG.
I'm Kelly Leinema. I'm the Deputy Director at NIMCOG.
And this is really just we are calling it an introductory presentation. I'm certain that most of you know about NIMCOG, but it is to just explain to you who we are, what we do, what we've been doing for the town, and to answer any questions that you might have or understand a little bit more about the town and your particular technical assistance or other types of needs. So NIMCOG is a 60-year-old regional planning agency. We're based in Lowell. We serve Greater Lowell. That includes Westford. We've been doing this work for a long time, and it is comprehensive. It's multidisciplinary, including land use planning, zoning, housing, economic development, a lot of transportation planning, environmental planning and climate resiliency, GIS and mapping, and then also regional collaboration and coordination, including working with our area managers and CEOs on various types of activities, and trying to advance basically as many projects as possible to support our communities. So our agency is really all about capacity building and finding ways for communities to collaborate, work together. Sometimes there's an economy of scale in working together. Other times it's about sharing best practices and opportunities, including grant opportunities, training and technical assistance opportunities, so a lot of different things like that. In the past year, you are funding our operation in part through an assessment that we invoice to you annually. And that assessment is quite low, I might add. For 9 communities, we generate about $110,000. The most significant amount of funding that we receive is actually through MassDOT, because we also operate as a metropolitan planning organization, meaning that we conduct all of the area transportation planning for the region. And so things that we conduct are traffic counts, transportation studies and analyses, like that project that was recently awarded, which is wonderful to hear, was actually one of the projects that NIMCOG supported in terms of a traffic analysis and transportation study earlier on in the process. We've also done things to support your Boston Road Rehabilitation Project, the Stony Brook Bridge project, and other projects as well in the past. We currently are served by Chris on our council, as well as Darren from the planning board, and Jim Silva, who serves as our alternate. I just want to note additionally, in the past year, we received funding through the District Local Technical Assistance Program, which is a state-funded program that supports basically all of our area activities in terms of planning and technical assistance. And one of the projects that we worked on with your land use management team was actually an inventory of brownfields and potentially contaminated sites around the North Main area in the Graniteville neighborhood. And that led to, which I believe is later on in your agenda, the receipt of an award from the state in order to work on remediation and removal of contamination at one of those properties. We also have been working with the town on making sure that your subsidized housing inventory is up to date. And additionally, helping the town to comply with the stormwater requirements that the state has. And then lastly, we help the town with all of its compliance through the Green Communities Program, which is basically a state program that ensures that communities are able to achieve energy efficiencies. And so Kelly is actually going to talk about some of our more recent work, but that's kind of a preview of what we've done in the past and how we've been supporting the town. I'll let you go.
All right, thanks. Okay. So this year we are working actively with Westford and doing a number of regional planning programs that will benefit not just Westford, but sort of the larger region as a whole. So this year we are working on, specifically with Westford, on assistance with MBTA communities. So helping the town, in addition to your other consultant who's helped with drafting the zoning, helping to understand a little bit more about MBTA communities law, what it means regarding economic development and the relationship between housing density and economic development. So we've been doing that work with Westford, and we'll see you all at town meeting in a couple of weeks. I'll be there. I'm very much looking forward to it. So That's one of the projects we've been working on. We, on a regional level, have been working on At Home in Greater Lowell, which is our regional housing strategy. We've done pretty much every housing production plan for the 9 communities in our region. And as part of that, and in talking with elected and appointed leaders in each of our communities, talking with municipal staff, the thing that keeps emerging as an urgent issue across the region, across the state actually, and the East Coast, is housing. And so finding ways that we can think about housing, collaborate regionally on housing in order to advance housing strategies, not just a blanket strategy for every community in our region, but to start to think about what's appropriate at the level of different communities and thinking about that collaboration maybe across borders, or ways that our communities can collaborate in order to increase housing production in a way that's appropriate for the community. So that's really what At Home in Greater Lowell is about coming up with strategies that work across the region. We're also providing regional level support on MBTA communities. We create and maintain the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, and we are currently updating that 5-year document, and that avails our communities to economic development funding to help pursue different activities, to apply for federal grants through the Economic Development Administration. We're also working on the Greater Lowell Vision Zero plan, which is a transportation and mobility focused plan oriented at a vision zero, or a zero fatality or serious injuries as part of your transportation network. So this is something that, again, kind of sets up Westford, sets up the region to be able to be eligible to apply for grants. It helps, just like the CEDS, or the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, having an SS4A or a Vision Zero plan will help the town and help every other community in our region be eligible to apply for federal and local funding to do those kind of necessary infrastructure improvements. We're finally also working on the Regional Digital Equity Plan, which is thinking about information technology and internet as infrastructure, and where in our communities we can help to enhance internet access so that people in each of our communities can sort of experience in the full range of our society as part of economic opportunity and access to information. And then beyond that, we also provide your regional weights and measures support. So this is something fairly new. We have several staff. We have 2 staff who work in each of our communities and go out and check your scales. They work with your gas stations, with your grocery stores. They check to make sure that all of your scales are sealed and are properly measuring things. So this is an important service that's required by the state, but is very difficult for communities to provide on an individual level. So we have staff who go out and do that work. Is there anything that I missed?
No, not at all.
Okay,
No, but I just want
yeah.
to say thank you to Manager Lass, who's been a pleasure to work with in her time here, and we're excited to keep working with the whole entire community on all of the efforts that we just mentioned. Also, the land use management team is excellent to work with, and as well as your town engineer and DPW director. We really have actually worked across your entire team on a variety of projects over the years, and we've always appreciated the support and work with the town, so thank you. And we're available here to just answer any questions that you might have about our efforts, and also entertain any other things that you would like to work with us on, potentially.
Well, I should start off by thanking you for the work you've done in partnership with the Economic Development Committee. I know we've used your technical expertise a few times and gotten your excellent advice and guidance a few times in the past, so thank you for that. Any questions or comments from the board tonight?
I'll just add my thanks, Tom. NIMCOG also just recently helped us on the Affordable Housing Committee complete our housing plan and production plan for the next 5 years. So we certainly thank you for that, and thank you for all your efforts in helping us get that done, because that's very important for us to have for grant money, as well as keeping our 10% and moving forward with that. So thank you.
Yeah, very, very helpful for members of the public to know that we've got this extra resource that we can reach out to, and because we have a lot of expertise in town, but it's nice to draw on outside expertise. Yep, John?
Well, they were also very helpful in the MBTA communities, the multifamily housing project. They were a big help to us in developing that, so we appreciate that.
Bigger community focus, yep.
Well, and we had, I thought, maybe one of it was actually at the charrette we had for the 12 North Street neighborhood. which, I didn't quite know what a shred was. In fact, I don't think anyone did, because they had a rough, kind of quiet start, as people were prepared to be talked to, not actually talked back. But, in terms of how it actually ran, once that first 10 minutes got passed, it was like one of the more productive meetings we've had. And I think probably that night you made more progress in an hour and a half than we probably made in 2 years in terms of looking at that site. So a well-organized discussion is great. You guys pulled off a good one.
Excellent to hear. Thank you.
And I'd just like to thank Jenny and Kelly. I've known Jenny for a very long time, so it's great to be able to work with her on a weekly basis. And I greatly appreciate attending the monthly managers meetings where I get to coordinate with all 9 managers in the region, and we get to talk about what are we working through, what are our challenges, regionalization, all of that. So I have a great benefit from attending those meetings and all of the resources as well that they provide.
Good. Well, thank you. We value your service and value your cooperation, and appreciate you being here with us tonight. Any other questions? I think we're all set, but I know we'll be reaching out to you soon with all kinds of requests for help.
Well, thank you for being excellent partners in
yeah.
the work.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You're welcome.
Okay, we are at our 7:35 item, which is to review and act to authorize the superintendent of Westford Public Schools to sign the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or MSBA, statement of interest for the Abbott School. Dr. Chu is
So
going to
Dr. Chu is remote.
join us here.
Mike, we might just want to change the view.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think people who
To
are
be-
on Zoom remotely are seeing.
That's great.
Exactly. Perfect. Welcome. Dr. Chu, if you could take yourself off mute, we welcome you. There you go.
So we, I had provided you with a memo, hopefully that was explaining what the scenario is. As you all are aware, we were invited into the eligibility period with the Robinson School, with the MSBA, which is the Massachusetts School Building Authority. And as part of that project, one of the things that they're considering, that we are also considering as well, is the potential consolidation of 2 schools in the future. And the schools that we had identified were Robinson and the Abbott School. And so they had requested that we submit an additional statement of interest for the Abbott School, which followed the same process that we did last year for the Robinson School, so that they can have all of that information in their database as they are reviewing our different buildings for this process. And so it's not the same process that we went through last year with the Robinson School, because the Robinson School is still our priority school. But what you see before you that I've shared with you this evening is a similar statement of interest, which takes us through the same questions, which asks us for the same data for the Abbott School. And what they require is that the school committee and the select board vote to authorize my ability to submit this statement of interest into their online platform. And that will, if you vote favorably to allow us to do that, then Town Manager Kristen Lass and I will also have to sign off on a couple of different pieces as part of that process. But so we shared with you the language that the MSBA requests that you consider for a vote, and the school committee went through the same process last night, and they did vote in favor to go ahead and move forward to allow us to submit this SOI.
And my understanding, Dr. Chu, is that this doesn't obligate us to anything new. This basically provides the information to support more or less the scope of work that we've been pursuing throughout.
Yes, thank you. That's very important. Yes, it doesn't obligate us to anything. It doesn't obligate the MSBA to anything as well either. What the MSBA wants to know is that the community is looking at, oh, well, we're interested in exploring this potential, but there's no obligation of any kind for the community or for the MSBA at this point.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Chu. I think it's very clear. Any questions for Dr. Chu about this? Yep, John?
Dr. Chu, I understand in the normal process, this would be due, 21 July for this next year? And,
No, absolutely. No, they're typical, for the well, since the time I've been superintendent, their timeline for this, submission has always been the middle of April. So last year was, April 14th when we submitted the, SOI for the Robinson School. And so this year they're asking us to submit any additional statements of interest by April 12th. They do have two different programs. They have their core project program, which is normally when you're talking about an entire school. And then they also have their accelerated repair projects, which are usually smaller projects, which is what our Blanchard roof project is in currently. And that does have a different timeline. But this has been the typical timeline to my understanding.
one other thing, will we be seeing this again, or is this the final? In other words, this submittal, will we be seeing the same thing again if Abbott becomes our number one?
I don't believe so. I mean, right now, we can only have one priority school at a time, and so our priority school remains the Robinson School. So the Abbott information right now is just supplemental because they know that one of the possible outcomes would be the consolidation of two schools. I don't foresee a scenario where the Abbott becomes the primary school. So this is really just a supplemental process for them so that they have the information in their database.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Dr. Chu tonight? Any from the public online?
Let me just double check online. I do not see anything online.
Okay, so I think we want to entertain a motion for us to authorize the superintendent of Westford Public Schools to sign the Massachusetts School Building Authority Statement of Interest for the Abbott School. Second. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Chu.
Thank you very much.
Next up, we have an update from the permanent town.
Tom,
I'm sorry.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
You are wonderfully 20 minutes ahead of time. And I know that there are a lot of people who are interested in the library project.
Okay.
And so I'm wondering if we could just wait a few minutes in case there are some people who want to attend to that and perhaps take a couple of things out of order.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. Thank you for that.
And Wendy is here and maybe we could do hers next.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Okay, why don't we do that? Wendy, welcome. If you'd please come up. Sure. So Wendy's here to make a request from the Westford, Massachusetts LGBTQ plus Friends and Allies to accept a $2,500 donation to support the town of Acton in the execution of the Acton Westford Pride event on June 15th. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I am here on behalf of the Westford LGBTQ group, and we have fundraised the $2,500 required to partner with Acton for to create the Acton Westford Pride event on June 15th. So I want to again thank the select board for their support for the collaboration of the two towns in having this event. And on behalf of our group, we are gifting $2,500 to Westford to support that event and to convey the check to the town of Acton. I just want to also mention that this partnership means an awful lot to our community in terms of visibility and support in the Westford community. Many states across the United States are enacting legislation targeting bans on gender-affirming care, school restrictions, forced outing, redefining of what sex means, and more. Since I've met with you, there are 6 additional ACLU mentioned bans, anti-LGBTQ bills in the United States, bringing the current count to 484 bills, active bills in the United States. Many of those targeting school sports, school facilities and curriculum censorship. So I just want to appreciate the town for accepting this check. And I created something a little flashy that is much less flashy than the little check I have on the back side. And if Kristen could accept this.
I will ask the board if they would like to accept first.
Wendy, why don't we go ahead and have discussion, and we'll vote,
okay.
and then we'd be very,
Okay.
very happy to accept the check.
All right, thank you.
Why don't we see if there's any questions first from the board about this? John?
What's the process going forward? You would give us the check, and then what's the process going forward?
We did seek council's,
Yeah,
did?
I
Okay.
reviewed this with council and with the Acton town manager, so we would accept the gift of the $2,500, and then we would in turn, partner with the town of Acton and pay them the $2,500 so that we are a partner as the town of Westford in this event in June.
I noticed the check is made out to both town of Acton and town of Westford, is that correct?
No, it's made out to Town of Acton.
Town of Acton?
Yep. That's how it was requested to be done.
So is it possible to make it out to the town of Westford so
I
that we
can
can
do
turn it
that.
on? Okay,
Yep.
sure. Sorry to make you do one more step.
No, that's okay.
Okay.
It was, that was my understanding. It was
Okay.
supposed to be out.
I apologize if there was a miscommunication.
I guess the idea, my thinking was, you know, if you want to make a grant, you can do it directly as an individual or as a group to the town that you want to donate it to. So this could easily have just been directly to Acton. But you want,
That's how we made it, but you're saying,
As I recall, the town of Acton
Yeah.
wanted it to come from the town of Westford and not from a private group. which
That is
why
correct.
They are
Oh, okay.
donating
Right,
the
that's-
money to the
that's the
town,
sequence.
and then we're giving it to Acton.
Because if we raise a town seal, it has to come from with a town check. But we promised the taxpayers no taxpayer money would be used, so when this group raises the money, which then pays the town, then we pay Acton, so that's the change.
Just a little circular.
Any other questions? Any questions from the public or online? No
Just
questions
double
online?
check online. Nothing online.
Okay. Great. I will then entertain a motion to receive a donation of $2,500 in support of the town of, to support the Acton Westford Pride event on June 15th from the Westford, Massachusetts LGBTQ+ Friends and Allies.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for the check, and now we would love to receive the check, even though we understand that it's gonna be a different check, but
yes, okay,
ceremonially, we'd love to receive it.
okay.
Tom could take the honors.
Yeah, thank you so much, and thank you for everything you're doing
Thank
to
you, Wendy.
support. It's a very important community. Thank you. Thanks, Wendy.
Thank you, Wendy.
Okay. We have a little bit more time still, so why don't we jump to, sure, should we talk about town meeting, just since we got folks here?
Well, I think there's a lot of people probably tuning
Wanna
in
be
at
here
that
for that
time,
too?
and we also have the town clerk who's coming up shortly.
Okay, got it. All right.
She just came.
All right, we can do minutes, why not? So let's do minutes for approval. This is for release of regular session of February 13th, 2024, and February 26th of 2024. And not for release, executive session December 6th, 2023, and December 8th, 2023.
So I'll move to approve the minutes for February 13th and 26th for our regular session.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye. And I'll move to approve the December 6th and 8th executive session minutes, but not for release.
Second.
Second, all in favor? Excellent.
I'm gonna do town manager's report
Why
while
don't we
we're
do
on it. Sure. Okay. And we also have Kyle Fox on the line for the first one, and Chris could fill in also. The town of Westford is finishing up the Westford Youth Baseball and Softball fencing and dugouts, I believe, at the Graniteville American Legion Fields. And to finish that project, there was a need for fencing that the town did not have the funds for. So my understanding is that the Westford Youth Baseball and Softball are donating $4,390 to allow for the town to purchase and install that fencing. Chris, do I have that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so I guess we'll entertain a motion to accept the donation as described by Kristen.
So moved with thanks to the Westford Youth Baseball and Softball.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Excellent.
And then we have two contracts to request that you authorize the town manager to sign. The first is I'm happy to report that the town of Westford went out to bid and received two proposals for the EPA Brownfields Cleanup Grant, which was $500,000 for 12 North Main Street. After review of those proposals and grading them and vetting them and checking references, we're requesting that the Nobis Group be authorized to enter into a contract with us for that cleanup of the incinerator area, again at 12 North Main Street, and their bid amount was $498,922.13. Jenny did allude to another grant from Mass Development that we have $250,000. We wanted to make sure we had this one set up. We knew the contractor knew what was going on, and we are getting ready to put that one out to bid very shortly. And the second contract is J.A. Healy & Sons Oil Company for diesel fuel delivery for the water and fire departments. They have separate tanks than the highway garage in the amount of 25 cents per gallon surcharge on the global price index for ULSD premium diesel.
I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you so much. And since we do have our clerk here, should we do a few from old new business?
Sure, if you'd like to. Lori, are you
Or
all
does that
set?
bring us to,
That also has town meeting implications, but however you wish to proceed.
We should be able to do this one.
Yes.
welcome.
Hi, thank you. Okay, so first we have the warrant. We've prepared the warrant for the May 7th local election for your endorsement. On the warrant, we have the select board with one seat, 1 3-year term with 2 candidates running and 1 incumbent. We have the Board of Health with 1 seat, 3-year term with 1 candidate. We have the Housing Authority with 1 seat, 1 term with 1 candidate running. The Library Trustees, 2 seats, 2-year term, 2 incumbents running. We have the Planning Board with 1 seat, a 5-year term, 1 candidate running who's an incumbent. The School Committee has 3 seats open, 4 candidates running with 1 incumbent, and we have 2 override questions on the ballot.
And the warrant itself was
The warrant.
in our packet. I don't know if anyone has any questions.
Good.
Okay. If there are none, I will entertain a motion to approve the May 7th town election warrant.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, so next, we have the request for over-the-counter early voting. So, Mass General Law allows for the Select Board to vote to implement early voting for local elections. The approval is based on the recommendation from the Board of Registrars. So earlier today, I met with the Board of Registrars and voted all in favor to recommend the Select Board that they vote to authorize in-person early voting for the May 7th, 2024 annual town election. Early voting for this election can begin no earlier than 17 days before the election, which is April 22nd. The voting must end no later than 2 days before the election, which would be May 5th. My recommendation for the early voting schedule is based on the workload that the clerk's office is carrying during this time period. So we have the town meeting, which is April 27th, and we're also preparing for the annual town election, which is on May 7th. So for the election, we will be sending out over 3,400 ballots from mail-in applications. This includes entering the applications into the state system, preparing and mailing out the ballots, receiving the ballots back and entering them back into the state system, organizing and preparing the ballots to go over to the polls on election day, organizing poll workers for the precincts, holding a clerk and warden's training, and handling our everyday work outside of the election and town meeting. With those responsibilities in mind, I recommend the following in-person voting schedule. Monday, April 29th, 9 to 5. Tuesday, April 30th, 9 to 5. Wednesday, May 1st, 9 to 5. Thursday, May 2nd, 9 to 7. And Friday, May 3rd, 10 to 2. I recommend working later hours after our regular closing time to accommodate any voters that may work during the day. These hours will allow us to get through town meeting, then focus on early voting in the May 7th election.
Just so I understand, that the time that's outside of normal work hours would be on the 2nd.
Actually, every day, it's except for, so it would be April 29th, 9 to,
They only work till 4 here.
Oh, I see. Okay, but for someone that is working a normal 9 to 5 job, the times they could access would be in the evening on the 2nd.
so 9 to 5, we would close at 4. I would
Thursday, May 2nd, so
stay
we
till
should be on
5.
the 7.
Yes,
Yes, okay.
yes. And then the 7th we would be open later, and that would allow
The
for,
7th is 7 a.m. to 8
9 to
p.m.
7,
on a
yeah.
regular election day.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so on that, any questions? Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to, I guess, endorse what our registrars have already approved.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Great, and how will we communicate that, Kristen? I know we've talked about that before, but just since we're on the item.
So we'll definitely do our standard news flash and social media. My town manager newsletter should be going out the middle to end of next week, so we can get that in on the newsletter. We can actually have the moderator announce it at town meeting if we wish. Lori and I could do a
Clerk's
Westford
website?
Cat show if we want
Sure,
to.
we can do that.
We'll try to get this out as much as we can.
Okay.
And then people who, again, had mail-in ballots will be getting those ballots in the mail.
we expect those ballots to all be out by Friday. The
Okay, excellent.
3,400 ballots.
And just because I had a resident ask me, I think Mass General Law only allows early voting at Town Hall, is that correct? There was a question,
Right,
could
we
it
had,
be?
we had
could it-
talked about, we can't vote
could it
at
be-
town meeting, it has to be at town hall or at the precincts.
That's correct, and it would have to be at the precincts on election day.
Okay. Okay, so the total set of places we can hold early voting are only those, and we don't have a lot of flexibility about that.
There is a little bit more flexibility. We could, I know for early voting during the presidential primary, we held it at the police station.
Yeah.
We could do that. At this point, we wouldn't be able to, but in the future, we could do that.
Okay. Okay, so a
But
little
that
bit
would
of
be-
flexibility, but that's sort of the zone of what's possible.
Right.
Okay. I appreciate that. Okay, so let's see, we've already voted on that. I think next up are the new election officers.
Okay, so, Mass General Law, Chapter 54, Section 14, says that within 3 weeks preceding any primary or election, the town or city clerk may fill the vacancies by appointing a competent person willing to service without regard to the political party membership, voter status, residency, in the city or town. So I've included a list of election workers that we brought on board through different means from the last election. It would be through phone calls or citizen activity forms, perhaps through the website. And this also includes students that I'm beginning to recruit through Westford Academy. So I'm asking that you appoint the voters and students on that list.
Quick question.
Yep, please, Chris.
Do the students have to be over 18 or?
Nope, 16.
Yeah, thank you.
That was my question, too.
I asked the same question about 2 hours ago.
Excellent.
I
Yes,
I have to ask, just to be clear, so we will have arrangements for food for our workers this time?
Yes, we will. Yes, we will.
We have a budget for that now?
Yes, in fact, I think I'm gonna try maybe little finger sandwiches instead of pizza. They might like that a little better.
Great, thanks.
That is
I
great.
think as long as it's food, they're not picky.
Yeah.
And we don't typically go through each name individually, but if a member of the public would like to see that, they can go to our meeting packet online and see the list of election officers. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
And next up is the, to review and act to sign letters to the town political party committees.
Okay, so according to Mass General Law, Chapter 54, Sections 12 and 14, requires that written notification be made to the chairperson of the Republican Town Committee and the Democratic Town Committee, to provide a list to the registrars of up to 8 registered voters from each party who desire to be appointed as election officers. The notification must be made no later than April 15th. I, as the town clerk, have prepared the letter on behalf of the select board and will deliver the letter to the respective chairpersons on or before April 15th deadline, after your approval. The deadline for the committee chairs to submit the list of voters to the registrars is June 1st, and this is something that happens on an annual basis. Once the list is filed, the registrars have until June 30th to submit the list of qualified voters to the select board. The select board, not earlier than July 15th or later than August 15th, must appoint the election officers for the precincts. And this, as I mentioned, is done on an annual basis. So the letters you have in the packet, and I can sign them upon your vote.
Any questions? Okay, something we do every year. I will entertain a motion to approve and sign letters. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, excellent. And finally, review pending state bills that allow hybrid meetings. Obviously, a great interest to provide as much accessibility as we possibly can. So, excited to hear any update we may have on that.
Yep, so Lori can be dismissed.
Yes, that would be Kristen. Thank you.
At a
Thank
previous meeting, Andrea had asked for an update on state bills that are pending related to hybrid meetings. We received a list from Rep. Arciera's office on Friday. I have not had a chance to go through that entire list, but I did want to make sure that the board knew that we had collected that information. We can certainly have that conversation this evening about more research that you'd like to have done or any other information, and then we'd certainly have to discuss if something passes, what we would do in that sense.
So, with those bills pending, I assume they're looking for comments and input, and is there a deadline for us to submit any comments we may want
We can look into that.
to do? Okay.
Good, thank you for that suggestion. I think we're having both our state senator and our state rep in our next meeting.
Next meeting, that is correct, yes.
So everyone can sharpen their pencils and get ready to go to
Yeah,
ask them
definitely.
all the questions. And we invite members of the public to come join us as well to help us better understand how we can get our tax dollars to best work here in Westford.
Is there
Okay.
anything else you wanted to
Any other
discuss on
questions? Yeah, any other questions for Kristen about tracking the hybrid meeting?
Yeah, so you're gonna go, how long is the list? I mean, is it,
that? It's probably 7 to 9
6 or 7,
bills.
6 or 7,
they were in,
okay.
yeah, the packet.
and so how do we, are they all likely to move forward? I mean, I know there's.
It's highly unlikely.
Right? Yeah, so do we just take like one and then try to get people behind it? Or how do we figure out which is the most likely to succeed? Is that a question for our representatives or?
Well, I think we should, as staff, should review them to see what the pros and cons of each bill are, what the requirements are for each town. Does it require equipment or staffing or other things? So we can certainly. I don't wanna-
They may be, the bills all may be consolidated for one hearing, so we should find that out.
Sure.
too.
Yep.
John?
As I understand it, some of those may include remote or hybrid annual town meeting. I mean, have you seen anything like that? I thought I saw that in the list.
We
It
can
talks
double check.
about meetings, and it talks about regular meetings. In some cases, it's every board or committee that we have. So it's gonna be quite expensive. Is the state gonna help us with that?
We will look into that as
Yeah.
well.
Good. Okay, so we'll get a digest of what we've heard. We'll have a chance to ask our reps about it in the next meeting. And, yeah, I agree, we should have some way that we've filtered through this and decide what we think is best for the town of Westford, and we should be supporting that. So we will continue to track that and bring forward potentially a letter of support in the future.
We will
Anything else?
we will add this to your April 23rd agenda.
Okay, excellent. Anything else on this topic? Okay. Yeah, Emily, please.
Road. I talked to somebody recently who was, used to live in another town in Massachusetts, and he mentioned that I think in the 90s, they had a town meeting that was done virtually through the cable station, and for people who didn't have cable, they could go to a viewing area and watch it. And then they had a few hours to go up to town hall and vote, like a space of 2 hours. And I mentioned that to Tom this weekend when I saw him, and I have no idea any more than I was just told that, but I'm just wondering if perhaps that might be something the state's considering, or if an idea could be floated back to them. I have no idea of any legal ramifications or anything, but it was just another model that I was interested in, and I thought I'd put it on the floor.
Yeah, thanks, Emily. So I guess anything we can find out about that. It sounds a little bit of like
1970s,
like a pirate,
So 90s.
pirate radio town meeting, but yeah, if the law allows it, we should consider it. So thank you, Emily.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that,
Yes, please welcome.
So, and I know, Angela Harkness, Town Moderator, and I know Diane is here too, and the Access to Town Meeting Committee looked into this. And I think that what you're talking about, Emily, is something that takes place in New Hampshire. If I'm not mistaken, I don't recall that there was anything here in Massachusetts to that effect.
Okay.
And I don't think it's allowed under present law.
Yeah.
I do know
Diane, you
that-
can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, Diane, if you come help enlighten us.
Diane Wood, 122 Depot. The Access to Town Meeting Committee had looked into a model similar to that. Town Council discouraged that at the time. So we did look into a two-step process and going to a town meeting and discussing, making amendments, et cetera, but the actual vote would come the next day or another time period, and people would go to a ballot vote. And that was one of the options that was thrown on the table. However, we did not get a lot of strong support from council at the time. That's one point. The other thing I will add regarding all the bills, Kristen, I know you're looking into, and from what I understand, there are a number of bills out there. Some pertain only to local town committees, right? Only, and maybe you already know this. There may be one or two that apply to annual and special town meeting. So they're two separate categories. And there are a number of them out there because what happens is that they don't get through the whole session, the executive session, and they carry through to the next one. So I'm not sure of the list, Kristen, that you had, but it's probably a mix of all that.
I believe it was just local board and committee meetings, but we will double check.
Okay, 3025 in particular was one that our committee had looked at, and that did apply specifically to annual and special town meeting, in contrast to some of the others that were out there. So,
Great.
and I'm not sure about New Hampshire.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Okay, we thank you for that. We are now going to go back to our 750 item, which is the update from the Permanent Town Building Committee and the Board of Library Trustees on the library building project, and welcome Ellen.
Thank you. Ellen Bangle, Library Director, in 20 Carlisle Road. It's interesting to follow Wendy and Dr. Chu because Massachusetts has the 5th highest number of book bans in the nation. You wouldn't necessarily believe that of Massachusetts. And I'm sitting here as to represent what happened 7 years out from having the board sign a grant submittal. So the public library construction grant that we are now engaged in with the library project actually had its birth in the capital submittal of 2003 from the library, and from 2007 when we were again eligible for a Massachusetts grant. The Board of Library Commissioners continued to put this as a goal in their annual trustee reports, and the first grant round that we were eligible for was the Planning and Design Grant, which spanned 2014 to 2016. we received $50,000 for that, and the town matched that with $60,000. The first vote, which awarded funds to match that, was in 2012, and that's the date where those 7 votes that either town meeting or town voters at the ballot have taken began. So from 2014 to 2016, the Board of Library Trustees and the Permanent Town Building Committee had representatives on the Library Facility Needs Committee. We did designer selection, which we have done again under the current grant. That was a stepping stone grant, and it ensured that all of the deliverables for the Massachusetts Public Library Construction Grant would be in hand at the time we made that grant submittal. That was due January 26th of 2017, and we went on a wait list with 36 other libraries, 1/3 of whom did not actually get their funding. In 22, we received notice 1 year early that the grant would be awarded to the town of Westford, and there was quite a bit of scrambling to get new cost estimating done, and we have to thank not only the Capital Committee for giving us $10,000. That was a June 11th on the field, on Westford Academy Field annual town meeting. You may remember it was about 98 degrees, and the AstroTurf was more like 120 if you kicked off your sandals. So at any rate, we also have to thank the Finance Committee because they approved a reserve fund transfer. So prior to our big grant, the town spent about $140,000, and I think it's important to remember that that preceded the $7.8 million grant, which will have one escalation payment, which will bring the total to $8.6 million. So we have been working steadily, both the Permanent Town Building Committee and the Library Trustees and the Library Working Group, with other representatives from sustainability and from facilities. And we're at a critical juncture where we are ready to proceed to design development, and we have had not a detour, but an important investigative sidebar since mid-December. When we did our mechanical study, always $4.1 million had been in the original budget for a variable refrigerant flow system, and I want to just say right off the bat, at present, this project is on budget, it's on time, it is net zero ready, it will be all electric, it will have photovoltaic systems on the flat roof, it will be code compliant, it will meet stretch code, the new plumbing code, which was enacted without any grace period, it will meet the municipal sustainability buildings guidelines that has been put forward. We found that geothermal had everything to recommend it except the upfront cost and the inability to float that cost before the rebate at the very end of the project. So while everyone agreed that that was the most attractive, we have made a number of calls. Town Manager Les and Dan, our finance director, called the Department of Revenue. The library building consultant from the Board of Library Commissioners called the Division of Local Services. I talked to our town council, who also had bond council status. The town treasurer talked to the bonding agency. And all of these entities and agencies agreed that we cannot front the money and overexpend the warrant article amount of $32,546,009 million. So we are a cautionary tale for the next project because either the town has to understand that a mechanical budget has to be enhanced and inflated in order to provide these upfront costs, which the Inflation Reduction Act offers, and you get them by submitting a tax filing, which is very unique in our municipal world. And you have to understand, that you are waiting to be sure that you get the rebates at the very end, and that 1 year after occupancy, your building performs correctly so that you get the rebate. So while there's no disagreement at all as to the attractiveness of that mechanical system, unless we want to become behind budget and behind our schedule, we really do need to move forward with the mechanical system that was budgeted. But this is a decision that the two joint boards will make tomorrow night at their meeting. So for now, we have a building that, as designed, will meet code. It will be solar ready. It will be net zero ready. It will be flexible. It will carry the library and its services and operations for at least 30 years. That's now the current mandate of the Mass Public Library Construction Program. It may not be a flagship statement for geothermal, but it will meet the sustainability municipal guidelines, and potentially that one geothermal well can be used for climate control. We don't know. We're investigating that. In the same breath, we are seeing fundraising. I've seen so many fanciful things on social media that I would think it's important to remember that the fundraising conducted by the Friends started the week of Valentine's Day. They do have over $500,000 in hand, and it is a 3-year initiative. Any donated funds will reduce the amount that taxpayers pay on the library project. And of course, the $8.6 million from the Board of Library Commissioners will reduce what taxpayers pay. And what we are committed to, and I can't say enough, our municipal buildings in Westford have been built by a truly dedicated volunteer board, sometimes working with unseasoned staff who don't know what they're doing. What we need is a sensible, serviceable building that will be maintainable, operable, and flexible, and will allow us to provide our services and our operation for multiple decades, all while being built by the low bidder. So I think, when we look back in the history of Westford, maybe we had 2 flagship buildings ever. The first was the J.V. Fletcher Library, the original library, for which Jonathan Varnum Fletcher gave $10,000, and then his gift was increased by $4,000 more. That's always seemed a startling change order to me. The town did match that with $5,000, and I think the other flagship would have been the Rodenbush School, which the Westford Academy trustees paid for. So we are at a point where we're ready to be headed into design development and find out even more about the building, the site, start to work with the town boards and the review of boards, commissions, and oversight staff so that we can be moving forward. If we can use our one geothermal well, which we purchased, that will make us a hybrid building. And as the town continues to look at its potentially solar campus somewhere, we can also be a partially solar building. But the good news is we are on budget. We're ready to go forward. We have an energy efficient building, and we are on our timeline.
That is good news. Thank you, Ellen, very much, and thank you and the whole team of people that are working so hard on this to make it happen. Why don't we go first to questions from the board? Any questions related to the update? Yep.
Yeah.
Andrea?
So Ellen, just for everybody's knowledge, what is the delta between the mechanical room as is now
So
planned for,
the delta
and the
is
geothermal.
1.6 million. So this is the bad news. You know, as we were projecting the budget to bring to voters in fall of '22, the estimate for geothermal was $1 million. In other words, it was always insufficient by $600,000. And that is the big stretch. The great dissonance here is the need to provide upfront costs for geothermal of $1.6 million, because what was budgeted for mechanicals was $4.1 million. And then to wait until the end of the project and 1 year after the end of the project to get the rebates from IRA and from Mass Save. So it's really, and we asked this question, I think, every way we could verbalize it. You know, is there some way for this to be, you know, seen as extra capacity? And, you know, we were told no.
So is there, I mean, I guess at some point I remember, and also I've been told that there was $3.2 million that was set aside for sort of sustainability issues. And how has that 3.2 million been spent, and is anything left of that 3.2 million that we could apply to this?
So it was 3.350 million.
I was close.
And it went to these, so as of June 2023, the stretch code was mandated. So 2.350 million has gone to increased insulation and higher R value, high performance double glazing for new windows, triple glazing on some of the rear window walls, interior storms for the historic Mary Atwood windows, CPA funds just paid to have those preserved, a photovoltaic ready system on the flat roof, which is new, plug load controls and occupancy controls, higher efficiency systems, increased building tightness, especially where the buildings connect, meeting the new plumbing code, which again was not anticipated and had no grace period for adoption. So some of this $1 million was also needed for moisture and waterproofing barriers. As a facility manager in Westford, I've often joked that Westford is granite and water, and we have had both. You know, twice I've had the elevator pit at the library hydro-proofed, and have wicked up water with a wet vac myself, while my silk trousers wicked water up to the knee. And we have also got to do some stabilizing between the connection of the old building and the new addition, and a full roof replacement, which will also provide more insulation as part of that.
So do we have anything left of the 3.35 million?
No, that is the entire breakdown.
Oh, okay, I wasn't doing
So
the
every dollar is spoken for. I would say that.
Okay.
Every dollar is spoken for. Every dollar that the Friends raise for furnishings and fixtures will reduce what the town pays on the bond.
Okay.
So you can say, well, let me just anticipate your next question. What can we cut? Okay, so this is the bad.
I wasn't going to ask it that way. I was going to ask what we could move around, okay?
So, again.
But you know, it's the same question.
When we signed these things in January of 2017, so the Board of Library Commissioners, you know, has published regulations for the 2016 to 2017 grant round. They make it clear that you can increase the scope of a project, but you cannot reduce the scope of a project. So, you know, if you see something on social media, can we cut it back? Can we have a smaller building? Can we do this? No, they are holding us to the 120-page library building program, which I started writing in 2012. In December of this year, I looked at it with our building consultant, our library building consultant again, and made her recommendations, changes for smaller tables, more chairs, more study space, which is something that she's seen the need of in new libraries that are being built. So we are not allowed to tamper, except with approval, with the library building program. You know, I really do relate to the disappointment. You know, I understand the passion of all of our sustainability proponents. I wish we had fewer emergency stairwells in the building. But we have accepted this funding conditionally based on what our library building program said we would be providing our public and what we would be providing as services. It's a flexible building. It will hold us. Now they want us to be able to guarantee that a building's life will be at least 30 years. And we also sold the design to the public. So, I think we're at a point where we have to say, we have met these baselines. It's the best we can do. It informs any future projects if there are imaginative financial ways to have a sustainability stabilization fund or a green energy stabilization fund, or if we had been Fitchburg, which received $40 million in ARPA, or Methuen, which received $60 million in ARPA, we could have tapped that because it would only have required your vote. Every other type of fund, you have to go back to town meeting. And obviously in this climate, there's no appetite to go back to town meeting when this will be an all-electric, net zero ready building and will meet the guidelines that were put forward.
I just have one last question, okay? Not changing the scope of the building, because I understand that you can't do that, and I'm not suggesting that you can. Is there a way, is there anything there that you could sort of make ready, but not actually sort of fund or do right now, but say, let's assume for a minute, we could take that, we find some money and put it towards geothermal with the idea that hopefully we get the reimbursement and then we can put that funding back in to sort of complete that area that we've left sort of roughed in. And I don't know if this is possible or not.
I'm going to say no, and I know there is an architect there that could be promoted to panelist, but if you will accept my word for it, this is why we had to make the decision. We cannot design going forward. The mechanicals for geothermal are very different. 25 geothermal wells marching down the driveway, are very different from what we're looking at with a heat pump technology. So we need to make this decision. Again, it's not my decision to make. I'm sharing with you, the realities of, our attempt over 3.5 months to see if there was some way to embrace geothermal with a brand new IRA program that nobody knows how to apply for. Really has a unique way to get that money back. I can't ever remember us submitting a tax filing. So, I guess my other caveat, because I've been through this once before with the library, a project and also a library grant, we still don't know what's ahead of us as we start to take things apart and start to work on the building. So, there are, in every building project, there are unknowns and surprises, good and bad. And so I think that, this is a time for real thought about how to make capturing IRA rebates or understanding. I mean, I've worked here long enough to know, we could never have brought a budget, with $1.6 million inflated funding in it in front of voters. I mean, I can remember when, every single line item in my budget was voted on in town meeting, and one year I had to go back for a transfer of $13.42. So municipal finance doesn't work that way, and it just isn't progressive enough to have caught up with this pay up front, wait 3.5 years for the rebate. But someone will figure that out because we're not alone. You know, every other municipality that wants to capture this funding they're going to have the same issues. They may not have town meeting type of government, they may have some swifter way to capture the funds, or they may not tax to their levy limit, or they may have federal funds. I remember federal funds. I remember federal revenue sharing. That was a long time ago.
So let me go to some other questions. John, I think I saw your hand first, then Chris.
Well, I was going to ask if, you know, estimate at this level, what level do you think you are in design? You're halfway there, or?
Schematic design is finished and the architect has been paid, and so now we're ready to go to design development. And with that start, you know, we will be pushing toward the benchmark where we get our next grant payment as well. Right now, we are working off the first grant disbursement.
So I think, Ellen, is it 25% designed, is it 50% designed, or do you need the architect to answer? Do you know who from the architecture firm is online?
I have the,
I think Alicia's on us as well.
Yeah,
Alicia's on. Thank you.
About 25%.
I guess I'm surprised that you're so locked in on certain categories of expenditures, because in my experience, that thing changes over time as you go through the design. And thinking that maybe some of this will move around or change over time. And I was looking maybe for the option or the possibility of having a added alternate or something like that you could include either in as a adjunct to the design, and something that you could bid that way. And if you have the money, fine. If you don't, then that would be designed for a later time. Was that even talked about, or?
Then we'd have to design it for geothermal,
Yeah.
not knowing if we can. And actually, there's a huge chunk, you're right, John, you know, there's a huge $22.5 million chunk for construction that, you know, has backup numbers behind it, but will be more fluid. This is really about having to choose now how to design the building, and the mechanicals have to be chosen. And, you know, as much as we might, you know, we all understand what geothermal has to recommend it, especially we had a good conductivity test. We have one well which we may be able to use, but the finances don't work. The finances just do not work, and, you know, there are reasons we have all the windows. Unless you have been conversant with all features of the building, the elevations, you know, the results of the infrared testing and all of the work, you know, that's been done by the design team, you know, it might feel that you could swap things out, but I think at this point that's not possible.
John, did you have a follow-up, and then?
I was actually to help answer that. I mean,
Okay.
so on the firehouse, we did adults for a fifth bay, and the aprons being electrified, which those are things you could just add after the fact. In this case, we're talking about the whole guts of the mechanicals of the building. You can't.
You can't do that. It's not a plug-in.
No.
Okay.
Wheel it up.
Well, one other question, just on the schedule. We plan on completing design by the end of this year? Is that the way I understand it?
I mean, I have the timeline. We will.
I think I read that in whatever you submitted is.
We're pushing to go to have the documents ready to go to bid by the end of calendar year, but it will be a push. We'll be very close.
And my operating budget assumes we'll only be in the building for half a year, and I will soon start on the RFP for you know, an off-site location and for moving and storage. So those will be 3 different things. So, but I have to start on that soon, just in case something falls through.
Chris, you have a question?
Yeah, a quick question. How much contingency does this project carry right now?
Can you repeat that? How
Alicia,
much? I missed the second,
Alicia,
I missed the one
Alicia,
critical
so,
word.
Alicia, can you tell us how much contingency we're carrying related to the construction and the design, please?
Right now, we're carrying about around $1 million, but the idea, that's also design and construction contingency, and as we move through the design, a lot of that number will be, as the design gets more solid and translates into actual items, some of the things are kind of assumed and haven't actually been drawn, so it's kind of in the contingency. Some of that contingency will go down and will be absorbed and will become, as known fact, be part of the budget. So that is a combined design and construction contingency at this point. Because there's so much that still hasn't been drawn, hasn't been worked out, things like that.
Okay. Other questions for Ellen?
I know.
Too bad. Any other questions for Ellen from people in the room or online? If you'd like to come up to Mike, Beth, and Emily.
Hello, I'm Beth Perkins at 9 Patriot Lane. I'm a member of the Clean Energy and Sustainability Committee and also very excited to be a member of the Library Expansion Working Group. So I just really, not a question, but wanted to point out a couple of things which certainly might be confusing to you, certainly to members of the public, related to the $3.35 million that was allocated, added to the project really, specifically at town meeting for sustainability. And at the time, we heard from the architect ways that that money could potentially be spent to make the building more sustainable. And we were told you could contribute $1 million. We knew it wouldn't pay for the geothermal, but $1 million could be used to add to the budget for geothermal, $1.2 million for solar, and there was additional money. I think I passed on to you that budget that we received at the time. So it truly was a huge surprise for those of us involved in the project in the group, that $3.35 million was gone, that it had been essentially spread over, the entire budget, and primarily for code compliance. And I don't think when it was voted on at town meeting, it was expected that we were giving this money or adding additional funding to the project to find gold to be code compliant, and that money was spent on the slab and the roof. I received the list of all the ways that money had been spent 2 hours ago. And that was after, many requests for the money, because certainly when we realized it was going to be tough to float that $1.5 million, we were thinking, well, we could use our $3.35 million, which we were considering as basically a sustainability fund, that's Ellen has been suggesting that we need for other projects. So I think we all agreed with when the architect came forward and the consultant and told us this geothermal is the best solution. It's the cheapest to construct with the rebates. It's the cheapest to operate, to maintain, and replacement cost is also the least expensive, that we thought there were ways to move ahead with it, and we were willing to spend the $45,000 that the town put forward to build that test well. And then the testing was positive. Every way said that we would be able to do an effective geothermal system. So I think that's a confusion, and I know people from town have asked me about that money, and although we are very excited about this new library and believe it is a big step forward in our municipal buildings to have an all-electric and solar-ready building, there was confusion about that money that was allocated by town meeting specifically for sustainability. And I don't really believe if we had known that money was gone and that we were unable to get it, we would have approved moving ahead with the geothermal test well. So I wanted to make those points.
Thank you, Beth.
The bulk of the $3.350 billion is for sustainability and for code compliance, which did become enacted during the life of this project. And we had to do a test geothermal well because it might not have been positive. It might not have had a good conductivity rate, and that might have completely ditched the entire option of geothermal. But the biggest problem, the biggest problem is the cost timeline of getting IRA rebates. And, again, the 3.350 million, it is throughout the building. It is in insulation, it is in solar-ready roofing, it is in code compliance, it is in plug loads, it's in HVAC loads. All of that is a huge step forward for, what began as a Victorian building. So there, was never any attempt to, I haven't been on Facebook enough, there's a word I'm catching for. There was no attempt to be disingenuous or untruthful about that money, but this is construction. And this is 15 months later from when we put together the original budget. So things in the interim also have increased in cost. We are lucky that the original bond that got passed by the town and that passed at the ballot by over 2,000 votes is ample, and we're still sitting in front of you saying we're on time and we're on budget. And we will have a building that meets Westford's municipal sustainability guidelines.
If any member of the public had a question about how that 3.35 million ended up being allocated, they could send in a request either to you or to the town manager and get a detailed accounting. And may have questions about that, but they can see that with full transparency how that funding was used.
We'll be glad to share that.
Okay.
Once you're done,
Emily, we're ready for you.
yeah, okay.
Okay. Welcome.
Thank you. Emily Teller, 9 Texas Road. I sort of have 2 points. Ellen mentioned the generous residents of Westford who helped build the Road and Bush and the library originally. And the town meeting has obviously voted a lot of tax dollars toward this wonderful renovation that's coming. I just wish that there were 8 people out there who would commit to giving $200,000 to meet this shortfall of $1.6 million. The problem is that would have to be done by tomorrow night at 6:30. So if any of you are out there, please call Ellen or Kristen Lass, who would like to cover that. Because, Andrea, like you, it seems like this is such an opportunity, and it's just killing me that we can't meet it. And so that's just emotional from Emily Teller with a solution. But I did talk to somebody today who gave a very interesting idea, which, again, the timing doesn't work. But what if out there in the world, a geothermal contractor would say, I'm going to dig this because the price I'm quoting you is 100% more than it will cost me. So I'm going to dig this project at my expense, and then the savings that you have in costs for maintenance and electricity over the next 20 years, not 30, let's do 20, you can give me a certain amount of that back so that I will make more than it costs me to do this project. I have no idea how that would work. And I don't even know if the town could commit to a, lease or some kind of financial commitment if that person were to do that, to then do an annuity or somehow pay them back. So and technology is going to keep changing. We are going to start projects like Ellen did 12 years ago, starting to write this up. And technology is going to continually change. Some of that will be more expensive, some of that will be less expensive, but I think the town as a whole, and you are our leaders, will have to commit to vision and supporting that vision financially, even if you don't know what that is. So I'm very grateful to be able to talk like this, and I'm very frustrated, I'm very sad. If I were a millionaire or a billionaire, I would write a check. But
And we would take it.
I know you would, and we would all be happy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Just by way of interest, the method that Emily's talking about is actually what the energy service agreement that working with Amoresco is. It's this ability to basically have them front load and then be paid in savings later. So the town is using that wherever we can, but the mechanics and timing of this particular program won't let us pursue that approach. At least I'm not an expert in this, and I know that people who are experts have looked into this. But anyway, thank you, Emily, for thinking about it. And that is a great idea, and we are pursuing something very much like it, but not able to here. And
No, John has a question.
Yep,
I
John?
do, but John can go first.
Great.
Since I've
Well, you know,
asked a
we're
lot of
talking about
questions.
some ifs, because we don't know that was gonna be there at the end, you know, the 1.6 million as far as the government supplement.
Yep.
When I look at the numbers here, I don't think that the differences are so dramatic they would dictate that we wrap ourselves around just trying to figure out how we're gonna get that 1.6 million. I think the approach that Ellen and the team have come up with is probably the best option, looking at what we're looking at right now. Now, if these were really astronomical differences, like in the millions, they're not, as far as the savings, one versus the other.
As far as the energy savings, so we're
Energy
talking about
savings.
one all-electric option in
Yeah.
heat pumps versus
And if we're all
geothermal.
electric and ready to go, I wouldn't want to delay this project any further. I think we need to move on.
I had one other question. So is tomorrow night a drop dead deadline, and I'm not an architect, I'm not an engineer, and maybe this is for the architect, but can they move forward with the design sort of on other parts of the building before doing the mechanical? Clearly, I guess, like I said, I'm not an architect and I'm not an engineer, but I'm just trying to think of ways to give us more time.
Yeah, either Rebecca or Alicia.
Either one, but designing is really a team sport. And the architects really need their engineers, and to get the architects out in front of their engineers is inefficient, and it's not gonna work. So they really need to do it together.
Yes, to provide just a little bit of detail to understanding, in particular, the problem that we face with this particular decision relative to VRF versus geothermal. So a VRF system and a geothermal system are both indeed all electric systems. However, once you sort of pass that threshold, they diverge in two different directions. What we call the terminal unit. A terminal unit is something that sits in your house and you provide you heating or cooling. Think of a radiator, right? What those particular units are in these two systems are different. The routing of fluid to those two particular terminal units is different. One is refrigerant, one is water. That has different implications for the building. Different implications for how we distribute air, where we need to provide fresh air, right? So it's both about, kind of, as Alicia pointed out, the fact that this is a team sport and we need to move together, but it's also really, in this particular instance, has to do with the particularities of the system, and that what that looks like will look very different depending on which of these systems we were to select. And that actually is one of the reasons why, unfortunately, we cannot take an add alternate approach to this, right? If it were about, adding another pump or something like that, we could take an add alternate approach and carry that through the budget. But this is really two completely different systems that have ripple effects for the design of the entire building.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca. And thank you, Alicia. I think there's at least one question from the public. Let me just look quick again. Any last questions here? Okay.
So just Paul Morse has a question related to the schedule and the calendar, and I think it's best for Ellen and I to work with him offline to clarify his questions, if that's okay with the board.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. Okay, any other questions before we let Ellen go? Okay, thank you very much, Ellen. Thank you for the update.
Thank
and
you,
all your hard
Ellen.
work on this.
I appreciate it. And to all of your committee.
Ellen is I think the only person who's served the town longer than David O'Keefe. Okay, next up is, let's see, we're talking about the 820 item, the discuss the potential policy for hybrid land use board meetings. And Kristen, are you teeing this up?
I can certainly tee this up.
Okay.
So, just wanted to let the select board and the members of the public know that currently, the Conservation Commission, the Planning Board, and the Zoning Board of Appeals do not offer hybrid meetings. The select board is offering hybrid meetings. We have for quite some time. We generally do not have public hearings associated with that, and public hearings have a whole level of threshold. Based upon the planning board meeting that occurred in a week or so ago, there have been some requests from the public to entertain hybrid meetings for the planning board specifically, but if the select board would want to entertain something, I would want it to be all encompassing of the land use boards and not necessarily just the planning board. The planning board is an elected board, the Conservation Commission and the ZBA are appointed boards. My understanding is that the request came in person, a request in person at the planning board meeting to have hybrid meetings, and the planning board or the chairperson, I don't know specifically, had asked that the select board set a policy, and if the select board does set a policy, then the planning board would obviously follow that policy. So tonight, I think, is just the initial discussion. You've received several pieces of correspondence in your packet from residents requesting that the land use boards or the planning board specifically have hybrid meetings. In discussions with Jeff Morissette, the Assistant Town Manager for Land Use and Economic Development, we see that it is possible, but we would need some time to survey what other towns are doing, how that plays with the public hearing process and making sure that we're not violating any public hearing processes, and then vetting that policy with you as a board, and then having your approval, and then bringing that and educating those land use boards and the staff. So that is the impetus for this request. So happy to gather any feedback from the select board before we move forward with an option or not an option.
So at least one thing that's on the table tonight is if we were to direct Kristen and her team to basically go out and look for and develop a policy to bring back to us at a future meeting that would cover this. And we did talk about timing and the importance of the upcoming hearing, and in terms of sort of an expectation of how long this might take to go out and do a survey and come back and give us a recommendation, because the same people who do that work are also involved in preparing for town meeting. It will take, we think, longer than one meeting for them to come back, which means there would be at least one more public hearing under the old format with the planning board. We did look carefully if there's a way to pull that in so we could rope the next meeting into this new format. It's a recommendation of staff that we just don't have time to do that well, given the fact that we're preparing for other things right now. Andrew.
Well, John had his hand up.
Oh, okay, John.
Well, you know, since they're an elected board, and the way that they, I think the law reads, it talks about the boards, and the COVID rules, they talk about the boards and the committees. And to me, do we have the authority or the oversight and the ability to dictate to the planning board how they hold their meetings? That's a basic question I came up with. Basically, the language you have extending the hybrid meetings, it talks about each board would make up their own decision. Now, if you've got an appointed board like the Conservation Commission, that's one thing. You got an elected board, and to me, that's another. I mean, so I just wonder, you know, we could establish a policy, but does the planning board really have to comply with that policy?
So it's not my understanding that we would be in a position to compel them. It's my understanding they've asked for policy direction, and I at least would like to give it to them because I think it is an important public interest to have hybrid access to these meetings. But yeah, if you came right down to it, are we talking about issuing some sort of written of enforcement? I don't believe so. I believe we're preparing a policy recommendation that they've asked for, and we would certainly hope they would act on it.
Okay. I mean, as long as it's just either a policy or a recommendation or something.
That was my understanding, but
Okay.
this is new to me as it is to everyone. That they've asked for policy. I think it would be a useful public good. So the thought would be that we would go out and create one. Andrew.
So I agree in terms of your comment. Yeah, the planning board is asking us to set a policy, or as I read it, to direct them to hold a public hearing, you know, hybrid. So I think we have the authority. They've asked us to do it, so why shouldn't we do it? I have to say that it came as a complete surprise to me that the planning board was not conducting or holding their hearings as hybrid and as remote. I, for some reason, just assumed that they were. I guess I really have to question, I think the next public hearing for the planning board is May 1st or?
May 5th.
May 6th, okay.
Sixth.
Yeah.
6th. I guess I really have to question why we have to do a complete town-wide survey and why we can't, as a town, decide what we want to do. I think this is a really important issue. I think for public access, whether it's the gun bylaw or anything else that are here, that are meetings, at least for elected boards to start with, and maybe we expand from there, all should be hybrid. And I also, Kristen, you said something about, can you hold public hearings in a hybrid manner as opposed to in person? We've been doing that. We've been holding public hearings in this board as doing it hybrid. So I don't understand why, if we're doing it, the planning board can't do it. So quite frankly, I don't understand why I need to do a townwide survey. I don't understand why that we can't look at this and we can't come up with our policy, at least with elected boards, and say, this is what it should be, and we should be making these hearings hybrid, and we should be making them available so that the public can participate.
But-
I
so-
don't understand.
Can I just clarify?
Yeah, let's Kristen
When you
respond
say
to that.
townwide survey, do you mean when I said town, like, go to other towns and see what they are doing?
Observe
or-
best practice, because there are things that are different about what they're doing than we're.
Even if you want to, I don't understand why that has to take so long, to be perfectly honest, okay? And I don't know why you have to do
So
it.
the question was
completely.
asked-
I think, pick up the phone, call a couple of town managers and find out what's happening.
Exactly, that's what we would be doing.
So,
So pushback understood. We had this conversation earlier today.
who's we, Tom? That's the other thing I guess I want to know, is
Well,
who's we had this conversation?
We meaning we, right here. So we were talking about this, today. I don't know if that wasn't, I'm sorry if that wasn't clear enough to Andrew. We is this group right here, as we were talking through the agenda, as we often do. And so the question was asked, what is sort of the minimum acceptable thing to do to make sure we're doing this properly and well? And staff talked about it, and they came back and they said, we would like the opportunity to look at how other towns are doing it and understand how the rules are different, make sure we're making a good recommendation to you. That seems like a fair ask to me, and it is the same people that have been working 12 hours a day to get ready for the town meeting. If you'd like to recommend that we ask them to press harder and work harder, we can absolutely ask that, but the question was asked and answered. This is the answer.
And I guess, we did this for 2 years during the pandemic, so I do think.
I think was
I
the
do
planning
think we
board,
have
the planning board was totally virtual, or were they totally in person, or?
I'm sure they were totally virtual, like all of us were to start with. Whether they went, hybrid at some point, I don't know.
I don't think.
But I certainly know that we went hybrid at a certain point. And so there's that baseline that we can work from in terms of how it was done.
Okay, Scott.
So, seems like there's two separate questions here. So one is, we've got public hearings, but our public hearings are, we're gonna put telephone poles here, here, and here on a map. Okay, that's pretty easy to run hybrid. If you're looking at a planning board hearing, that can be hundreds of pages of designs and elevations, and it's a different animal entirely from what our public hearing is. And if, we don't get a comment on a location of a power pole, we don't get sued. But if the planning board doesn't get somebody, connections is disrupted and can't comment, do we get sued? I don't know. But I do think there is questions to be asked, but, and probably better because you're on the planning board, but it does seem there was a different creature here that does require a little bit of time to research. But, so that's one question that, in the broad sense, how do we fix this? But the reason why this came up, I suspect, is because of the gun hearing. That actually is a pretty traditional kind of public hearing that we would run. So, can we request the planning board run a hybrid meeting for, the gun issue only, or conceivably, do we have a joint boards meeting of us and them? Pick some date in May, and that becomes, we can do hybrid, and then.
Well, maybe we could do a joint meeting on the same day. that they're already having it and decide it's a select board meeting too and run it in the way we run it, if that will meet the needs of what's happening that
Just
night.
throwing out an idea, that's all.
I think that's a nice interim solution to at least bridge the gap to give town staff more time to do research. I mean, again, we've done this many times ourselves, so why don't we do that, dual meeting this next time, and then we can continue to do some research and tweak policy as necessary.
Or I'm happy to throw resources at the planning board on May 6th if
Yeah,
the board
I mean,
desires that.
I
We
was
just wouldn't have a formal policy in place at that point in time.
I was gonna say, as an interim, we can say, yes, you can hold, hybrid public hearings for the gun bylaw. Throw the resources that they need for the May 6th and hearing, and if whatever other hearing, obviously, I'm sure that there'll be another hearing after May 6th, as opposed to having a joint meeting and having us all go to another meeting.
I do just want to run this by council. As Scott said, there are certain, and Andrea, I know you know from being on the planning board, there's certain state laws related to public hearings for land use versus the public hearings that you hold. So I just want to run by town council that we would have the proper resources to have that available. And if the meeting were to drop in some way, that the Zoom were to be dead, we'd automatically have to continue that hearing to another date, I believe. But we will get all that in order.
So as a proposal, why don't we suggest that we have another meeting in between now and the hearing on the 6th. So why don't we see if there's some limited provisional way we can enable this, given the limited scope of what they're trying to do in that meeting. And if we feel comfortable with that, we'll just not direct them, but we'll set a policy that suggests they should do that on the 6th. If somehow it ends up being a better solution or a different solution that will get better public access for it to be a joint meeting, we can decide that we're doing that in the next meeting. But I think to get a complete policy, given the interests and making sure we're doing this right and being compliant with the law,
We have two, actually.
it may be, we may get the full policy at a later date.
So I just wanted to point out from a town meeting point of view that the planning board is often doing hearings on zoning bylaws, which are going to come up at town meeting. So the more access the public can have to those hearings, the better it will be for town meeting, because people will be able to get questions asked and answered in advance and have more knowledge of what's coming up at town meeting, which will streamline our process there.
Okay, thank you. Ann?
Sorry, one last. Just as you were surprised at the reaction from the planning board suggesting a policy, everybody in that audience had the same reaction. Why can't the planning board do this? And my letter to select board on this topic listed no fewer than 10 or 12 communities that do it today. I spoke to Acton. They don't have a policy, but there are 10 or 12 in that list that I submitted, in the letter, that do hybrid or do MS Teams. So you saw the letter. So most of us were very baffled at why there's such resistance to this, and can we somehow make this work? It's transparency, it's inclusivity. Is that a word?
Sure.
But it's making it inclusive for the community, and it makes no sense whatsoever. And the resistance is strong. It's not right. So whatever you can do to help would be much appreciated for the whole community. So,
I think we're unanimous in the fact it would be a public good, and they have asked for direction, which we are going to provide. So thank you, Diane, for that.
I think you have one more.
Yeah.
Yep.
So just a quick question. Along the lines of, setting a policy and who has to follow it, if we were to bring this to town meeting and town meeting adopted it, then would that be binding to another elected board, like the planning board, for example?
I don't know that answer.
In a future, so at some future town, I guess if we,
It could
I
be
guess I would suggest, Chris,
general
if-
bylaw perhaps, but I don't.
What I'm trying to avoid is, let's say you have a board that's hostile to this idea, and I don't know if it's something that we want just to allow them to do, if the town meeting is the appropriate decision-making body to put something like that as a bylaw. I would like to know if that's the correct course of action.
Okay, why don't we ask that question of council, and in the meantime, in the time that we've got, we're gonna attempt to put some sort of provisional direction to hold this, given the scope of what they're doing in that meeting, as a hybrid meeting, if somehow it helps them do that, or it's required for us to be a joint meeting to do that, well, we'll do that. And if it means that we can do the full sort of screen to make sure we're doing this properly, given the complexity of what might be going on, maybe we can have that done earlier, or maybe we'll just proceed with this hearing as a provisional.
Do we need a motion on this or a vote or?
I think I have your direction.
Yeah, I don't.
What would we vote on?
I'm sorry?
I think we're giving Kristen direction.
I think I have the
there's
direction.
anything
I
to
think
vote
I
on.
think we're okay providing direction for now. I think we would vote on the policy, should we make a policy. So when we have the information to make the policy at the next meeting or the meeting after that, we would vote on that as being the policy. But for now, I think we've given Kristen adequate direction.
I know, and from Diane's letter, I mean, Acton's planning board holds hybrid, Chelmsford's planning board holds hybrid meetings, and I can't remember the other.
Yeah, some are totally virtual.
Yeah, so, I don't think it's that complicated. That's just my personal opinion. I don't think it's that complicated.
It must be possible because our neighbors are doing it. Yes.
Right.
Betty?
Does the select board have a policy on hybrid meetings?
Nope.
I'm not aware of one.
Yeah, okay.
We just do it.
I mean, I think we've been invited to help solve this problem, and I suggest we do it.
Isn't Acton's planning board appointed, they're not elected?
I don't know that off the top of my head.
I just sit with the planning board meeting.
Yes, it can be.
Okay.
You only have to.
There was a conversation and guidance from them about whether.
Are we good on this for now?
No, it was only.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, Emily, please. No problem. No problem.
My question is, what is the capacity for Zoom, for example, with the topic of the gun store bylaw hearings? Because I think a lot of people will tune in, which I think is a fabulous problem to have. And the other thing is, I've come to a lot of meetings in this room, and as a person in the audience, I can rarely see what the proponents are putting up here for the planning board, conservation, and zoning bylaw. They often put things on an easel to face this U, and the people that are here really can't see that unless IT has it and they can display it on the screen. But I've always felt it's really kind of a, I don't know what the word is. You know, we're not able to see it, so it's a lack of information. It's kind of discrimination on the public, which I think hybrid meetings would eliminate, and I am totally in favor of those three boards having hybrid meetings. And I hope that your direction will include those other two boards too, but I think it's a great way to use technology. I'm worried about the capacity.
Our capacity is 500 registrants.
I don't think that's going to be enough, given, I'm not going to come back here and say that, but I don't think that's enough, because given the fact that we had people at the other town meeting, the special town meeting, I think we ran out of clickers.
We had joint boards meetings for hearings on it, and we didn't have 24.
We had some hearings at Millennium, and it was pretty full, but it was nowhere near 500.
Good luck.
Yeah, if we have more than 500, we'll have to cross that bridge for a hearing. Okay, where were we? We are, let's see, we are through
10.
10, so we're on 11.
Okay. Annual town meeting. Why don't we welcome Madam Moderator up? And first up, we want to vote to re-sign the warrant. Is there any
I'll move
discussion there?
I will move to
Okay.
approve and sign the warrant.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And we have that for your signature before you leave this evening.
Okay, and then next time is discuss town meeting logistics and public outreach. And I don't know, Kristen or Angela.
I'll let Angela start as the moderator, and I can fill in.
Well, first of all, just as you know, but I'm going to say it for the public, so many people have been working on getting this to the right place where it's going to work for a number of people who want to come. And I'll let Kristen go into some of the details, but we've been on site at Westford Academy. It will be starting at 9 a.m. on April 27th on the Westford Academy field. Everybody pray for good weather. If you can't do it that day because of the weather, it'll go to the next day, the 28th. We've got lots of planning going on for check-in to make sure that goes smoothly again. I think we're going to have 3,100 clickers, so we shouldn't have clicker problem, famous last words. And the parking is all being planned again with overflow at Chris Foley Robinson and Abbott, and continuous busing between those overflow spaces and Westford Academy. So there's lots of detail going into the planning, and I hope it'll all work out well. And I guess a really important thing would be if people could respond to the survey, and I think you can find a link to it right on the homepage, the town homepage. The survey is just a tool for us to use. It's 4 questions. It takes less than 30 seconds. It just asks if you're going to town meeting, did you go to the last one, did you go to the one before that? And that's just a tool that we can use. It's not binding in any way, but it'll hopefully give us some idea of how many people are going to attend, which will make for better planning as well.
Should we go right to questions, Kristen, or do you have anything else you'd like?
Sure. I just want to reiterate that we will still have free childcare for residents to sign up. The sign up is on the recreation website right now. We'll also still have free transportation for residents to be picked up at their home through the COA vans. We will be preparing for a pizza lunch, cash only for purchase, and have also set up pop-up tents here and there. The MRC will be there. We're trying to bring in an LED screen trailer so that people will be able to see the slides. So a whole myriad of planning is going into play. I know Angela mentioned that we were talking about some indoor venues. We just could not make it work within the time period with our AV system. We hope to be able to bring something back to the board in the future, because if we continue to have large town meetings, we don't want to depend on the weather for every town meeting. So we're talking very actively about options of using other ancillary spaces at the academy, or also having satellite locations at either Abbott or Stony Brook gymnasiums as well. So just on this slide, again, logistics, we're still starting the budget articles first thing about 9:15 after you give your opening remarks, and we're planning to talk about Articles 17 and 18, which are the zoning articles, right after lunch. And then I did want to touch upon outreach. Ms. Harkness talked about the survey. That's a QR code to the survey if people are watching right now and want to take that. We have over 400 people who have already taken the survey, and we've issued that yesterday afternoon, so a great response so far. Your town meeting postcards are in the mail. That you'll be receiving them in a blue piece of paper, so those should hit your mailboxes tomorrow or Thursday. There will be an MBTA zoning open forum, just to refresh people's memories on that, next Tuesday here in this building. It'll be more of an open house that people will be able to walk around and ask questions and interact with the materials. We will be having one last budget open forum on Articles 1 through 4, and really town meeting logistics again on Wednesday, April 24th at Millennium and via Zoom. The highway message boards will be going out next Friday with the new date and the location. And then again, we continue to update the town website on a daily basis with the town meeting items. Again, it was just decided upon last evening that we were definitely using the field, so those updates are coming out now.
And just to wrap it up, it's really exciting that so many people are participating. It's really a great thing. It's not a bad thing at all. And we're going to do everything possible to continue to encourage that many people to participate and to make it comfortable and efficient for them to attend.
Yeah, thank you to everyone who's been working on town meeting stuff. It's been a learning experience of grand proportion, but everyone's really risen to the challenge, so very impressive.
I think he did. Oh, go ahead, Scott.
There's a question kept today at the joint boards meeting about, there's a play at the Academy, I think it's 7:30 on Saturday night, so normally you get people coming in, actors to make up and so forth. I guess, is I thought when we would actually say, we call town meeting for the following date if necessary, is that, I think we're prepared.
You would have to continue the meeting. When would you continue it to?
Well, to continue it on Sunday, you mean? If we have, if it doesn't finish on Saturday and we go to Sunday.
Because we're hamstrung at the, it may be daylight till 7. We're probably get stuck more like at, what, 5:30
Yeah,
or something.
so I think I'd like to talk to Dan Toomey about when they expect the kids to start coming in for the rehearsal or whatever, in order to determine whether we're going to start at, I would say, 10 or noon. I don't think we want to start at 9 on a Sunday, but maybe. So we could start at noon, which is what we did last time when we had to go to Sunday. But I think I have to make that decision in advance. I'm sorry I don't have a good
No,
answer for that, but it's a good thing to think about.
I don't want to surprise you on, the
Yeah,
day
no,
of.
thank you.
And your question was at what time on Saturday evening would we
Call it.
call it?
Oh, is that what you were asking? I'm sorry, what
Yeah,
time I
because-
would go to?
because the show is that night,
Yeah,
Saturday
so
night.
if we're starting at 9 o'clock in the morning, it's gonna be hard to go past 5. It really is. I think I would like to end at 5, unless we're right at a point where we just have a few minutes more or less than an hour more and we can finish it up. Sorry, I misunderstood your question.
I just had a comment.
Yep.
You did a great job on the last one, and I expect you to do the same on this one. I appreciate your effort.
Well, it's
I
not
mean,
just.
This is a lot of work.
It's not just me. It's
I know, it's
there's
Krista and
so
you
much
and
staff
all the
working
staff,
on this.
right.
It really is.
It's amazing
you,
what you've been able to do, so appreciate it.
Chris.
So you mentioned that we will have 3,100 clickers. Are we going to have the ability to stress test our system to make sure that it can handle that number prior to town meeting?
Yes, we are.
How are you keeping track of them and making sure that we're getting them back to the municipalities we borrowed?
I think they're all gonna be labeled
They're
with
all
different
labeled, so
colors.
ours are blue and red, Uxbridge is gonna be a certain color or a U, and Stowe is going to be a certain color or an S, so, Mike Wells has that all under control.
And this is probably a good time to bring this to the public. The people with same color clickers are gonna be sitting in the same section. So there'll be a blue section, a red section, a green section, a yellow section.
Why are you doing that? That's
Well,
not fair.
Because the receivers have to speak to the
Right.
clickers.
Right.
Okay. How are you going to ensure people do that, though?
Well, we'll tell them on the way in that that just like we were telling people, if you have a red clicker, you have to be in the PAC. If you have a blue clicker, you have to be in the gym. We'll be telling people on the way in, and the seating will be marked.
So, and would it also be that if they're not in the right place, then they try and vote, they'll see on their clicker that
won't
they're not
work.
voting?
Correct.
Their vote hasn't been registered, and they have to run back to whatever color area they're supposed to be in?
I mean, there'll definitely be an incentive for sitting in the right area.
So if you want to sit with your buddy, you got to make sure that you come into town meeting at the same time, get
Right.
the same color
Yeah.
clicker.
And carpooling would be great if you want to carpoool with your buddy to save on
There's an
parking
incentive
spaces.
for doing that, right?
You're gonna have hand stamps that are different colors.
Yes.
And
Oh, boy.
so if you get 3,100 people, are you gonna be able to fit them all on the field, or are we gonna use the bleachers?
No, that'll include the bleachers
Includes the
too.
bleachers, yep. So 1,200 capacity in the bleachers, we're gonna have over 2,000 seats. If people wanna bring their own lawn chairs and try to sit somewhere else, if we're over, they can do that as well. And if we go over 3,100, we are prepared with secret ballot voting as well. The clerk is preparing that, so.
It's exciting.
So,
Easy for you to say.
You've got the 4 sections, right? Well, how many sections of clickers are we gonna have? 4 or 6?
See, I think there are actually, I'm trying to think of Mike's diagram today, were there 6? It seems like there were
there's 6
6
sections,
six
yeah.
And
sections.
so that also accommodates people that are in the stands?
Correct.
Okay.
I'm just thinking
Intervention.
of, and you've probably already thought about this, but folks who are disabled, will there be an area for them so that
Yep,
they all
Mike is
have?
leading the charge on disability access.
But I'm just thinking
and-
that, you know,
yes.
they all have to have the same color probably, so you can have them.
Yeah.
you know.
Yep, so we'll set aside clickers both for select board, finance committee,
Yeah, I
extras for
figured you had
disability
that under-
section. Yep.
You already thought about that.
Any other questions?
So while we're on the topic of disability access, or access for people with disabilities, what are we providing for remote options? I know we talked about it briefly at our last meeting. Have you figured out what the approach is? I've been directing people to you, because I
Thanks.
and have anybody else to direct to,
No,
but.
we're actually having a meeting on this tomorrow.
Okay.
So, and I have received at least one email.
Okay.
And we'll have some definite instructions and directions, hopefully after tomorrow.
Yeah, in terms of directing people, we're gonna be posting to the website a new email address that we set up for accessibility at westfordma.gov. So we'll be taking all requests for accommodation through that, and then we're meeting tomorrow to figure out exactly how we need to address them.
What's the time frame that they need to have a request into you by?
What we're looking at right now is next Wednesday. We've got to have enough time to kind of work through the technology piece of it. We did talk with MOD's, Mass Office on Disabilities General Counsel, get some guidance from them. So we're just trying to make sure we've got the most accessible and inclusive path from a technology standpoint.
So next Wednesday is when we'll be able to take the requests, or
No,
that's
we're
when you
going
want
to
the
be,
request by?
They're due.
we'll be able to take the request, actually, if, we'll be posting it tomorrow with the email addresses, but you can certainly share accessibility at westfordma.gov now.
Okay, yeah, that's a great innovation. So I just want to
then
make
there's
sure
gonna be
there's enough
checkpoints asking
window
questions
for
of if
people to
people
find out
need-
and register.
Yeah, and
And I would just
disability-
encourage anyone who is in that situation, email you anyway.
Yes.
If we can't accommodate you, will.
Or me, they
Yeah.
can email me as
Okay.
well, and I'll pass it on.
What's your email?
My email is aharkness@westfordma.gov.
It's on the moderator's page, the town website.
It's on the
I have a
moderator's
question
page.
from Emily Teller.
Right.
What's your address, Emily? 9 Texas Road.
Teller@earthlink.net.
Uh-oh.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Any other questions on that item, which was item 11?
So I just appreciate the board's support on all of this planning as well.
You're
so.
doing a phenomenal job.
Yeah, this is an Olympic level of town meeting.
I mean, other towns are now gonna come to us and ask us
Yes.
what we did and how we managed.
We can charge for that advice.
New
By
revenue
the
source.
hour,
There you go, you
Little
know?
budget fill-in.
That is nice.
Enterprise fund.
a revenue source.
Yeah, we'll take it. Okay, we are now moving on to item 14, board reports and updates. Any boards and reports and updates tonight? Okay. And now number 16, correspondence.
Move to waive.
All those in favor? And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Right.
Okay, we have lots to sign, right? Is that-
Yes, you do. Yep.
So I didn't get away.